There was a Star Trek episode called Who Mourns for Adonis? At the end, this godlike figure calls out to Olympus, Mount Olympus, to take him back. It's like what it's like to be inside a group of people who have done their homework, like the Kennedy Assassination Research Group. And then you get tired of them because they're wrong about too much, or they refuse to investigate too much. So you go out looking for people who've researched and studied on their own and find that there's all of these people who believe that Hitler died, which is ridiculous. He got away. And so you eventually give up and go back to the insider group who you can't stand. And I'm speculating because I've never had a conversation with Robert Kennedy or, for that matter, Greta Thunberg. I don't know anything really about them beyond their public relations stuff. And but I assume that the reason why Kennedy has come to this impasse, where it's obvious that he won't defend his own family from Israel, much less the entire country, is because he was part of an inside group of people who were lying. And the only people he can talk to about what happened are them, because they're the only people who understand what they were lying about. Now he's probing out, like with a sailboat, trying to figure out how to get away from them while rescuing the people around him. Now, Donald Trump handed the Texas school book as a dare with the help of the Beatles. And during the time that RFK was drug-addled and stupid, he made a terrible Faustian bargain with Paul McCartney and Clinton, going along with the storyline, the terrifying fraud of Mount Desert Island around Netanyahu's little nest, hornet's nest in the city of Pittsburgh, who were ripping off the museums and shuttling illegal books to Trump and making off with big bundles of money and torturing me. They murdered Circe. And during that time, he thought, well, it'll be a joke to use super surveillance on Queerball. And then he came down from Whippets or whatever Her Majesty's Secret Service had slipped him with Eric Clapton and realized that it was a bum trip. At least I hope he did. But he's trying to justify himself rather than take cognizance of this Texas school book and what it means, because it came from Israel. Instead, what Penis Gabriel convinced everybody to hedge their bets. And they talked to people who used to laugh about me in high school. Everybody could see that I had been battered, senseless, and was deaf. The reason was kept from me. I was the son of somebody who had the preeminent position at the university system. And it was a joke for them to do this. My name was Jimmy C., which is a namesake of Jimmy Carter. The man who attacked me were named Ronnie and Casper, like Reagan and Weinberger. And the Beatles put this together around the stolen VW Beetle that I was conked unconscious as a drunken 14-year-old by adults to play this game called I Am the Walrus. These men attacked me and tortured me. And under the tutelage of people like Dexter King, intellectual properties management, they kept the whole thing from the public. That's the reason why nobody talks about it, is because they're behind the scenes under the table, Clint Eastwood casino style, for the bragging rights to the document. So, and they ripped me off for everything I am. Their proteges just murdered 60 journalists in Gaza in the course of 6 weeks, many times targeting them in the home. Robert Fripp is an assassin who does the exact same things to me that Russian extremists did to Anna Politkovskaya. That's what kind of deranged devil this psycho is. And he tries to hotwire up all sorts of fraudulent stories and say it's because Queerball made us twist our ankle that it happened. It's because Queerball made us twist our ankle that it happened. And they spy people, with supercomputers on a poor kid who was tortured. And they can't get enough of themselves. They talk to gym teachers who called me that queer Carreri, and Fulham, and they say that queer was a queer bait. He loves to be called queer bait by Frank Zappa. Oh, you used to see him fawn over Frank Zappa when Zappa calls him queer bait. That's what kind of mental psychopathy these people all live by. They can't emotionally, psychologically, politically, editorially, humanly, in any way comprehend their responsibility for encouraging the murder of 60 journalists in Gaza because they thought it was so funny to torture a deaf child who was in trauma, who came crawling to them for help. I hitchhiked after I graduated from high school from Pittsburgh to St. Louis. I stopped up in East St. Louis in the middle of the night to watch Jimmy Carter's speech on a motel television. This is just a fact. It's just what happened. And they showed no sympathy for me whatsoever. In fact, they set up entrapment operations. They used me as a pigeon for an example in their genocide program. That's what they did. They bartered slap five at the Jesus Freak barbershop with somebody who locked me out of a church when an armed mob showed up for me, calling me a rich kid who lived up on the hill. My mother had to sell her house for the rock bottom bid, and in crying shame, we were white capped by people who the attorney for Prince Charles championed. To this day, he champions the people who tormented my mother and drove us out of a neighborhood. How does he justify that? He justifies that apparently by saying that a friend of the man who locked me out of the church wrote a poem that I read once. Wow! That means that Mackenzie Shirilla was not car bombed. She self-destructed. Wow! And that means that when I was in a neurohypnotic state and being led around by peers who wanted to see me destroyed and tortured me, I was having fun. Wow! See what a big fortune teller the Swami Nostra are. They can read your palms. They read your palms and say, "Oh, see that neuroplasm that nearly killed him? That was designed by Cyril Wecht," the lead psychiatrist for Attica State Prison, Bernard Wattenmaker. See, whose sons are in neurobehavioral research with Dr. Mackenzie. Guess what? His soul retching out on the side of him, and wow, he loved King Crimson. He wanted to be in Roger Waters' band. That's what it means. It means that because he read a poem by somebody. And this is the super logic of the people from Vichy, France, who worked with Gurdjieff and the Gestapo. And they went on a day that our temperature rose to 2 degrees centigrade. For the first time in recorded history, we hit the mark of self-destruction, mass destruction, starvation, drought that is pretended for all the future, for all humankind to come. For the first day in history that this happened. When 60 journalists have been murdered, 60 journalists have been murdered in Gaza in the course of 6 weeks. They want a news break because I read somebody's poem. Oh, wow. And the fact that I read his poem proves that the man who locked me out of a church and conspired with Penis Gabriel to cover up how I was tortured so they could play peep for pornographic genocide company that murdered the Kennedys. Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. thinks in Top Sacred, Eric Clapton Barbershop Slapping 5 is his ticket to ride. So he's going to keep real quiet about what they did to Cersei. He's going to be real quiet about the deal that he cut on drugs with Ringo Starr.